Hi, everyone here and around the world in this November 2025 Earthfiles YouTube channel live broadcast. We're about to break through 296,000 subscribers of the Earthfiles YouTube channel, and I thank you all so much for your great support. Nearly half a century ago, in 1979, I was a 36-year-old TV producer, director, writer, editor, and reporter of special projects at the CBS station in Denver, Colorado. And I concentrated on environmental problems. And that summer and fall of 1979, TV and radio stations, along with the Denver Post and the Rocky Mountain News, reported the strange deaths of cattle, horses, goats, sheep, domestic house cats, and even kangaroos in Australia. My TV camera crew and I took off to investigate, and what we found became the Emmy-awarded documentary, A Strange Harvest, after our first broadcast on May 25th, 1980. TV Guide reported, quote, "A Strange Harvest is about mysterious mutilations of livestock in the Colorado area, produced by KMGH's Linda Moulton Howe. In the past 13 years, an estimated 5,000 to 10,000 cows and horses have been found with various body parts missing, with no tracks or clues, including no blood. Often ranchers at night saw moving lights in the sky over pastures, and some were photographed like these time lapses that we are showing now that were in Sterling, Colorado. And I was with reporter Bill Jackson when he was taking these photos, and we were seeing the lights. And I've always thought it was one of the best examples of what could be over pastures in these time lapses. And then the author and retired Navy engineer, William Mills Thompkins, studied UFOs for the Navy and told me he learned that, quote, World War II, this is him speaking, World War II was an extraterrestrial war fought through human bodies, close quote. In an interview that he did with me back in the early 1990s, before his death at age 94, Bill Thompkins told me that in their World War II war offices, there were blonde, blue-eyed secretaries where he worked, and they looked human. He said, but they were actually a Nordic type of extraterrestrial, ostensibly helping the United States in that awful war. Here is a Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 star map with our sun at the top right. And Bill Thompkins said there was another type of bluish-gray skinned ETs from the binary solar system Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 in the lower right of this star map. That binary system is 39 light years from Earth. Those biological and artificial intelligences have one dominant feature, he said, that scares humans. Humans are scared of the huge, slanted, shiny black eyes like these on the cover of Whitley Strieber's world-famous Communion, A True Story, copyright 1987. According to some confidential military sources, those Zeta Greys after World War II met with General Dwight Eisenhower, five-star general who became U.S. president, and who is alleged to have secretly signed a treaty in 1954, not long after his 1953 presidential inauguration on January 20th, 1953. Allegedly, the treaty he signed allowed those Zeta Greys to harvest a certain number of Earth animals and humans for a specific nourishment from Earth blood tissues, that there was like some kind of biological problem. And now 73 years later, in November 2025, Kay Rose Golden, born in 1966 and now 59 years old, she boldly states in her new 2-volume book, Into the Gray's Abyss, quote, "This treaty signing was at Kirtland Airforce Base, New Mexico in 1954, and this sealed our human fate to be what some called fodder for the otherworldly grays." Kay says, quote, "This was a terrible trade deal of human lives for experimentation by otherworldly beings, all for advanced technology between the gray beings and the government of the United States," close quote. There is another argument to that the United States may have asked for technological help, and it may have been assistance. None of us know for sure. Kay Golden says there was not just one landing, but 3 apparent landings and at least 2 meetings with U.S. President Eisenhower in 1954. The agreement was for the Greys to have the go-ahead to take a few cows and a few humans to experiment on. And these Greys were supposed to report back names of who they took. Who did the Greys take? So that the covert powers that be could keep track of who had been taken and what was done to them. These 2 volumes of Into the Gray's Abyss are true accounts of Kay Rose Golden's otherworldly abductions. And her bio states, quote, "Kay has been a lifelong UFO experiencer since childhood and an extraterrestrial otherworldly gray human abductee. She felt extremely compelled to present her unbelievable otherworldly encounters after they continued to happen multiple times in her life." Retired U.S. Naval Aerospace Engineer William Mills Thompkins, near 94 years of age, when he gave me his 2-volume book copyrighted in 2020 about his, quote, "life in the top secret world of UFOs, think tanks, and Nordic secretaries who were actually blonde-haired, blue-eyed ETs from another solar system," close quote. And William Mills Thompkins stressed to me in an Earthfiles recorded interview that, quote, "the U.S. government began to catch on in World War II that the war was an extraterrestrial battle fought through human bodies," close quote. Bill Thompkins told me that the Zeta 1 and 2 reticuli solar systems do have extraterrestrial humanoids with huge, slanted, shiny black eyes, illustrated here by UFO abductee Adam Burns in New York City. Bill Thompkins and other retired military have told me off the record the Zeta Greys did meet with General Dwight Eisenhower after Ike became U.S. President on January 20th, 1953. And further, that Eisenhower very secretly signed a treaty in 1954 that allowed those Zeta Greys to harvest blood and tissues in trade for advanced ET technology. Bill Thompkins also knew Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 were named in the famous Betty and Barney Hill UFO abduction case, detailed in the 1966 book, The Interrupted Journey. Betty and her husband Barney Hill on September 19th to 20th, 1961, were abducted by a gray-skinned non-human who said he was from the Zeta Reticuli binary system 39 light years from Earth. And Kay Golden says again, quote, "This was a terrible trade deal of human lives for experimentation by otherworldly beings, all for advanced technology between the gray beings and the government of the United States." Kay Golden describes her, quote, real-life, bizarre, and extremely frightening encounters with otherworldly Zeta Greys, and one very tall and thin, with gray-blue skin that Kay says is very mind-manipulating and menacing. She calls him Rex. Kay believes the tall gray Rex is a progenitor gray, meaning the ancestor parent of a genetic line of descendant life forms, and Homo sapien on Earth might be one of those descendant lines of humanoids. I asked Kay Golden to receive telepathic communications from Rex, and here is Kay Golden.
It isn't so much telepathic as it is thought transference. So it's more like him pushing thoughts into my head when I'm taken, and me being able to push back thoughts into his head. I don't think he can actually read my mind, and I can't read his. But it's like sometimes it's like a bullet in the head, very quick, and it can be very strong depending on his tone and his mood. And yes, he has emotions.
You are experiencing the communication from Rex not through your ears, not the auditory canal, but you're receiving thought patterns from his mind somehow into your mind.
Correct. Sometimes it's pictures, a lot of times it's words. In most cases, he's simply directing me, like, Kay, lay down, Kay, necessary, Kay, calm. Very short. It's always pushed into my head, and I always have a headache afterwards the next day. It can be very stressful.
You have sent me some illustrations that you have done, and one of them is Rex. I'm looking at it now, showing the viewers. Can you describe this illustration as you know him?
Yeah, so he is tall, about 7.5 feet. He's got a thin body build, really long arms, not real short legs like the Zeta Greys, a little bit longer. He wears like a dark silvery blue skin tight fitting skin suit, almost all the way up to the neck. And he has a belt. It has sort of, I don't know what you call it, a sash. It's kind of a light purple. Comes down from the right shoulder down to the belt. There's a square metal box. I won't say it's a belt buckle, but there's a box there in the middle where the belt and the sash meet. And there's a couple of raised bumps on it. And then he has a little pocket area right there where he keeps this 6-inch long piece of metal.
What do you think it does?
I know what it does. I know what it does. It is something he's used to threaten me with when I've been on the table and I have not wanted to cooperate. He used it near my right eye. And during one thought transfer procedure, he pulled it out and waved it at me kind of threateningly. And I backed off with my thoughts.
And what do you think he was trying to accomplish with this metal rod?
He wanted me to cooperate. He wanted me to lay down on the table, and I didn't want to lay down.
And would it have been for a vaginal exam or something along those lines?
Yes. Usually it can be a test, something like just putting a strange machine over my chest that punches a couple of holes in my right arm, like a multiple vaccination, or it could be just drawing blood.
You've been in the presence of this Rex many times.
Yeah.
What do you intuit, because humans are extremely intuitive, what do you intuit is the goal? What is it that he and the other beings that are like him, what is it that they want from you, from humans, from the Earth?
I'm going to say this is the hybridization program that is going on. One of the abductions, it was like December of 2023, I was put on one table, and it was a big room, a big white room with lots of tables, several other humans on these tables. Big white room, like a warehouse almost. And they did something to me, and then I got moved again. I say moved, a little Zeta Grey, half biological, and takes me by the elbow, just barely touching me, and we walked down the corridor, put in another room, and put to another table, and then samples are taken from me. There was a machine put on my chest, a black small metal machine, felt a pressure on my chest. And I'm laying there, and it makes noise, and it moved over the right side of my chest, and I didn't like this, and it moved over towards my right arm. Inside of my right arm, I have like 5 circle puncture wound from this machine. That I think that's what it did, is it gave me some sort of inoculation, maybe to protect me or protect the hybrid child that I was about to see and hold.
They're going to show you a hybrid child made from some of your genetic stock and something else and them. And what do you get mentally, not just from Rex, but from the other gray Zeta beings coming in? Maybe they push thoughts, images into your mind about why they are doing this hybridization program.
I've gotten only short cryptic messages from the tall grays. The hybridization, simply I asked how many times has this been done, and they basically said many times, many. And when I found that out, I was pretty much physically ill. And that's the picture on volume 2, basically, is that gynecological procedure with the mantid being and the tall gray there. There's nothing I'm getting from the smaller. I don't get anything from them in my head. The only communication I get is from the tall gray. I do not get communication from the mantid being either. It is simply from this tall gray.
One of the statements that was made to me was, we are a species that was made by ETs.
That guides me on the ship. There's always one that's guiding me just by my elbow, walking through this corridor, going by these rows of lit, glowing doorways, and no communication from them at all. Only communication I get is from that tall gray Rex. I get nothing from the mantid being.
And in one of the very important, very confidential meetings that I had was, we know that the manager of what the Greys are doing in terms of abductions is a praying mantis that is in the Andromeda galaxy, not the Milky Way galaxy, and that it is a manager of galaxy-wide programs. And I remember that because my mind, I was astonished. This was a very serious person telling me what they were learning. And they are saying that our government, at some level, has come to know that there are genetic programs and experiments going on from the Andromeda galaxy in the Milky Way galaxy, some involved with our Earth, and that one of the statements was the praying mantis is built biologically, genetically, to live and survive for at least, this is exactly what this man said. I remember it because I was so shocked. 10 billion year long lives.
Good Lord.
And when I said, why would one biological, artificial, intelligent, whatever you want to call it, some system of something looking like a 8-foot-tall praying mantis, why would it be built to go on for 10 billion years? And his only answer is, we do not know. We just know that they have that ability. Well, the idea that there could be life forms in another galaxy that could have genetic programs that would take biological species and turn them in to essentially sophisticated computer programs doing hybridization on who knows how many planets, and that they could go up to 10 billion years. Why would anything have to be made to survive for 10 billion years?
That is a really tough question. I have no idea.
The impression I have is that whether it's the Zeta Greys, whether it is humanoids in Andromeda, that we are in cosmic forces that need to do, for some reason, hybridization, need to do genetic programs, which is an interesting question in itself. Why is this going on all of these different planetary systems? And when you look at the Earth, that we were, in terms of Homo sapien, Cro-Magnon, Homo sapien, Denisovans, Neanderthals, sort of some of the more recent, we'll call them genetic humanoids that have been made on this earth, and they have been studied by human scientists. Well, one of the interesting things, I think, is 45,000 years ago, approximately, there was a crossfade, a taking out and a bringing in of two humanoids. One was Cro-Magnon Homo sapien sapien, and the other was Neanderthal. Neanderthal was bigger, had a bigger cubic space in the brain, or in the skull for the brain, and yet the one that was faded out was Neanderthal. And scientists know that they must have buried their dead. They must have had an association with recycling of souls and the whole die, live process, because they have found rectangles of flowers, which means that the flowers were put down over graves, rectangular graves. And that would explain why they have found so many rectangles of flowers. Well, that would imply that the Neanderthal had some kind of a relationship or understanding about the cycling of souls in and out of bodies in what we call the cycle of life and death. So why were they taken out? Cro-Magnon Homo sapien sapien was smaller, had a smaller cubic brain capacity, but we are the ones that replaced Neanderthal.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always wondered about that.
I don't know, but I believe, and this is kind of off the record, I believe that they took out the dinosaurs.
Intentionally, the dinosaurs were taken out, and the explanation given to me back in 1983, because I remember what I was working on, was the grays were coming and going on the earth. Nordics with blonde hair, blue-eyed, and pale skin were coming and going. And he said bluntly, the famous warriors of the Vikings, Linda, are Nordic extraterrestrials. Who was making the Denisovans and the Neanderthals and the other forms? Who was doing that? Because that means there was a manager like a praying mantis. But who was actually managing Earth? And why was there a decision made to take out the Neanderthals and keep the Cro-Magnon Homo sapien?
That is a very interesting question.
And what is going on today?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're definitely being managed. Every abductee is being managed.
I agree. I truly agree with that statement.
So I believe that every abductee is being managed. I'm being managed, and everybody that I've talked to who's been taken and had a lifelong, we're being managed.
And hi, and a shout out to Kay Rose Golden for doing these two new books. And want everyone to know, I think that she has all the computer work done on getting them through out, so you can purchase them at Barnes & Noble and some at Amazon.com too. And that I'm curious how many people might be in the audience, Ian, who may have had military or government experience, and they may know about the 1954 treaty. We all need the hard facts, but sometimes when I have brought that up that way at conferences, I will end up getting more information. And so I'm really curious. I think from the many times that I have heard about this, that there was a treaty with President Dwight D. Eisenhower, and it was with an ET group that I understood were gray types, and it was because either they had a medical problem or this was part of their relationship with coming and going on Earth, meaning that there is something in the blood, something in other aspects of biological life on Earth that is of help to the gray beings. And Whitley Strieber has talked about that also, and that he has, I believe, concluded that there is a factual base to the idea that the mutilations that in my life, I only hit all of it in 79. Who knows how much longer in perhaps smaller percentages on the planet that there was something going on between something in the sky that would glow and Earth life. But for a lot of us, it was 1979 for reasons still unknown. Why did it just explode seemingly on the planet? And today, there are still animal mutilations. And part of me says, if you look at it, that it is a medical help. Is that a good thing? Not a bad thing. But what we don't know is what is the reason that this planet, the blood in animals on this planet, and why? And Ian, have you ever been exposed to anyone who said that they either have seen or that they feel strongly that there is a 1954 agreement that Dwight D. Eisenhower, as President of the United States, signed not long after he became president from being a general in the war?
Well, the most direct connection I have with that is by 2016 when I met up with Laura Eisenhower. I spent some time with her, and she is a descendant of President Eisenhower, and she was convinced that that there was a treaty that had taken place. So that was the closest that I ever came to anyone who was able to give me their own verification as far as they were concerned on that.
Well, and I have talked with somebody who was working in 1954, and they were a reporter. And this was probably a conversation in 1983, and that was about having firsthand knowledge of Dwight D. Eisenhower signing a treaty with, and that person didn't know the nuances of the different ET groups. So it was a 1954 treaty with extraterrestrials, and that was a shock to me back in 1983. Now, what was your reaction to sort of evolving pieces of the story behind what K. Rose has done with these two important books? What intrigued you the most, Ian?
Well, first of all, Kay Rose Golden, we featured her in a program last year when she talked about her early experiences with orbs with her father.
Right.
And what's important is that she's reissued that first book, and it's actually called Into the Grave Abyss, The Abductions Continue. So what is important here is that the abductions are continuing. This is an experiencer who's had experiences all of her life, but she's updated the book, brought out an updated copy, and she's here on record to say that the abductions are continuing. Many people think that the abductions stopped or that there's a slowing down of abductions, but she is proof or evidence of ongoing abductions still going on in Colorado home and ranch.
And what I like is that she is not closed-minded about trying to find out at a science level, at other levels, if something happens where they live. They've had a strange noise. They've had what seemed to be something in the orb category where they live. And that instead of being afraid of it, she really has an inquiring mind. And when you read Volume 2 especially, it is a book with insights from a human being who is describing first-hand experiences with something other than Cro-Magnon Homo sapien. The book is strong, and I recommend to everybody get Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Kay Rose Golden's new releases. And with that, Ian, what out of what you've been exposed to in the discussions in the books with her do you think right now may be an important subject that, with all the clickbait that's going on in computers, and what is a 3-eye atlas really, and how do comets break up, and all of that, we've got our minds being directed out into space. In terms of abductees, do you think, because you've been a student of them as well, do you think that they are still ongoing with the intensity that they once were in the 70s? Or again, is there a pattern in how humans are brought into interactions with the non-humans by them, that a lot of this is controlled by the ETs?
Well, what's interesting is to see that abductions continue with postmenopausal women who would be not currently involved in an ongoing hybridization program, but there are the ongoing contacts, which it seems to suggest that there is an ongoing relationship between the ETs. Kay Rose Golden makes a point of talking about this one tall grey who is that she calls Rex. What's important as well, this follows a pattern that we often see in the abduction scenario, where there seems to be one particular leader or one particular team leader. I don't know how the hierarchy always works, but who becomes the friend and confidant, if you like, of the abductee. Sometimes they say that this person or this ET, this being, doesn't change or age. They're the same. That's something else that we find in the people who have the experiences with the Nordics. They say this Nordic being, who can often pass as human, often stays the same sort of age, even though the abductee themselves is aged 30, 40 years or so.
Well, I think that the one thing that I learned from interviewing her is that in her case, it is a strong difference between the bluish-gray skin, and there definitely are bluish-gray skins and others that are more gray or cement gray. There are differences along that line, where she says that when she is trying to deal with Rex, that he has only those words like K, calm, and that she may not know what is going on, but that she knows that it's coming in. She calls it pushed into her mind, these words, and she definitely knows this Rex, the 6 foot tall, blue-gray skinned, versus if it's little ones, they may not have much of an interaction mentally at all. They are just there, as she says, to take a hold of my elbow, to make me turn in a hall, in a craft. And that these are distinctions that she has been clearly able to make, even when she's been on, as I understand it, some of the big craft.
That's right, and she does actually say, one of her statements is that there are more and bigger craft coming. That's what she's been told as well by her guide.
Did she ever answer? Yeah, did she ever give you an answer about what that would mean? Which ships bigger and more?
No, she's still speculating, but she was quite clear that was her statement, that there are bigger and more ships coming. This is a theme that, again, we've heard from other people's experiences, that they feel that there is going to be an uptick in craft coming towards us or coming to this planet. A lot of people have had dreams of many craft in the skies, myself included. So this is one of the things that may be predicting a future ET event.
Ian, let's stop now and have our colleague, Brad Stoddard, who is sitting about 5 feet from me, and he has a bell in front of him. And I would really like to try to do short answers as possible to questions that all and any of you might have, and that in the context of everything that we have done on the Earthfiles YouTube channel now since 2017, we have lots and lots of programs that I think are valuable. And one of the things that I am challenged with is that I want to spend more time, if I can, with my dear family and my granddaughter, who is becoming a gymnasium phenom, where I don't have to work 24/7 days. And that I want to continue to be Earthfiles. It's been part of my life for a long time. But as you and Eric and Brad and I have talked, we would like to try a transition where I only do one live segment, and you guys will be committeeing about subjects, and we'll start that sometime here in the beginning and hopefully in January of 2026. So right now, we have a chance to click this bell, and I'm here, you're here, and do the Q&A with the audience, which I've always loved, and they seem to love it, and that you guys, in the transition from me doing one show a month, that you might do more of that as well. So I see that Brad is getting ready. He's ready to go. And go ahead. And what we're going to do is...
I've been lining up some questions from the audience tonight. And by the way, there's a large interaction from our fantastic audience this evening in the chat. A lot of new people are welcome to the chat tonight.
Good.
So here we go. Straight off the bat, here we go. Get ready, Brad. Roy Stevenson says, are greys able to actuate our latent mental abilities, including ESP?
Latent. Do greys contribute to latent mental deficiencies? It's a little hard to hear.
Okay, here we go. Are greys able to actuate our latent mental abilities, including ESP?
Yeah, actuate. That's an English word. He's in England and I'm in Albuquerque. I would say that I know that I've talked about 3,000 people in the last 45, 50 years. And when it comes to the mind and the interaction, there are a few things that seem to me almost constant that come up from abduction to abduction. And one of them, and Kay Rose Golden, she's experienced this more than once. A person could be reading in a chair, or they could be pulling their bicycle in someplace, and they're either going from motion to stop or stop to motion, but something runs a frequency that they feel, and most of them describe it the same way, as if there is a wave of a frequency that comes over their head and their back. And they have no idea what has happened. But the very fact that historically I have heard that quite often, it raises an issue about, is that sort of the hello, the doorbell ring, the something that is a frequency connection with some people from whatever the technology is that does this. And it's a byproduct of interacting with humans on Earth. And that's not the only one. It's just one that comes up quite a bit. And that Kay had experienced that. And the strange sounds that she recorded and I have heard, she had a lab test and listened to them. And the report is something that we should probably go into more deeply and do another show at Earthfiles about some of these physical interactions like this. It was found to be anomalous in a certain category of information that she sent me recently, and I have never encountered the words in the document before, so I wanted to do more education of myself. But I'm bringing it up because there are these patterns of people having the wave of frequency or seeing a light beam that comes from the ceiling down over the bed, over a chair, and that may be one of the most common is the beam that people see in a house, in a garage, outdoors. I would say that's at the top of the list. Okay, let's go to a second.
Okay. Next question. Galvolathor says, surely the Greys would have gathered enough genetic material. They've been doing it for like 10,000 years. Why are they still gathering genetic material?
Oh, there's two lines of thought here. One has to do with things like copper, metals, what would be the chemistry inside of blood fluids that humans might have uniquely as a genetic experiment on Earth that other ETs came to find to be valuable. That's one direction. But another one, when you look at this, is, as Whitley Strieber has reported, we did a show about. He did some research himself with the idea a few years back that perhaps the animal mutilations were related to a problem that the Greys might have as a biological species, and that they had determined that there was something in Earth, humans' Earth life, that was more nourishing to them, and that Whitley has some science about at the level of looking at blood under a microscope, it may have a crystalline pattern. And in that crystalline pattern might be certain valences having to do with connections in energy. And that Whitley and I had a discussion where he said, I think it is certainly a solid issue to think about, is that the ETs may have a problem that deals with copper, and that's what Whitley has researched, and that it might turn out that the copper structure at the subatomic level in Earth-based blood may be very different from wherever they are come from and they have a problem. So it might be something fundamental to the physics, the chemistry, and the structure of the molecules that make up then whatever is in the blood or the tissue on Earth that might be better for the Greys. And if I don't know anybody who can talk about anything like that, I do know some people who work in some agencies who are involved with studies having to do with elements and substances. We don't know enough because we've been denied any interaction and any legitimate, we'll say, discussion with our government or the military about any of what happened in World War II. And it was very dramatic. And some of the stories about UFOs coming and doing circles around the length of an airplane at the German-UK border. I have talked with a person in my Bentwaters research with John Burroughs. It was an amazing story, talking about how they had a relative who had been in that category, flying, and then came some kind of a bright light more than a craft and did these rings around their plane right there at the border where the war was. What were the UFOs doing? Or was it strictly monitoring? that is another thing that has come up now in the modern age of drones, that a lot of the UFO activity associated might be drones.
Well done, Linda. By the way, before we go to the next question,
That was good.
TJ Roy is in the chat tonight, and he says, yes, us abductees are certainly managed, but it's deeper than that. More than just a breeding program. I'm part of an immunity program working on advancing that. It's a process to upgrade a species. So I just want to say we'd love to hear more from you with your experiences, TJ Roy. Please contact us at ian@earthfiles.com, and I'd like to talk with you, perhaps, and we'll explore your own experiences.
And
Linda, we'd get straight to...
And Ian, one very important point to make is that, call it a hypothesis, that there could be a hybridization, which is what I explored tonight at the beginning in the show, is the exploration of how much hybridization is ongoing. And if there is hybridization on Earth, why, by whom, to what end, and the alleged manipulation of genetic material to create Cro-Magnon Homo sapien and the other primate humanoids, it could be also extraterrestrially designed and controlled. And so you have to get into discussions and think about this with like a deck of cards. There could be so many different partial truths that until we have discussions with people who actually know, we're never going to be getting the complete picture. But I do think that we are getting closer in this regard. How many people at Earthfiles tonight think that we can get through 2026 without the big headline that we're not alone in this universe, and that non-humans are a part of the fabric history of Earth?
Well, let's see if we got time to quickly put up a poll. Let's pose that question. If Eric can put a poll up, how many people? Just phrase that question again, Linda, and let's put it up there.
In 2026, Congressman Luna and others keep saying or suggesting that there may be forces at work, and that 2026 may be the year, way past due. That was my point. It may be 2026 that we are finally going to have the headlines everywhere on the whole planet. We're not alone. They may introduce the tall whites or the Nordics, and that we will go from how long? The entire length of the evolution of Homo sapien sapien, that the whole planet has always been in a kind of lie or denial of truth. And that if 2026 is some sort of pivotal year because of other big forces that are at work that we don't know anything about but have been suggested to me, that there now might be an urgent reason, for maybe a good reason, not scary, an urgent, good reason for why our planet of Homo sapien needs to be waked up to the full truth. It may, in the end, be the right thing to do for 8 billion souls and bodies. And I know that that's still an argument that goes on in some of the conference halls of large corporations that are involved with the government on a lot of things having to do with space and space travel. And I don't think they would be putting the money that they are in to these issues of deep quantum tunneling. That's going to be the next big thing that we will hear. That's where you can jump in space-time. That's what the tall whites can do. Deep space quantum tunneling. Well, these are words that are just not in regular daily discussion at all. And until they are, I think it may be a peekaboo type situation where we'll be giving a little bit, like in 3i Island. You put out a little bit of information, clickbait goes to work, real scientists come in, real engineers, and we have a kind of evolutionary announcement over a period of time in 2026, perhaps, bits and bits and bits, and finally, maybe before that year is over, that it will be like this grand, exciting, instead of the fear of war and destruction. I think those two have been against each other on the issue of when do those that know finally open up the truth to the whole earth. Okay.
I think that's a good point as well, Linda, for us to mention that this Friday, 21st November, is the limited theatrical release in Los Angeles, Washington, and New York of Dan Farrer's new film, which is The Age of Disclosure, featuring 34 top-ranking and people on the inside breaking their silence, as they say, on the UFO subject. And
good.
Ross Coulthart was only just now on one of the on the News Nation channel saying that, quoted as saying, he's heard rumours that there may be some movement from the White House on the UFO issue after this documentary has aired. And I know it's featuring high-level people such as Marco Rubio, and I think that some of the statements that are said in this program are pretty profound. People are organising watch parties, etc., for it, and so watch out for this new film, everyone. That might be another step towards the breakthrough.
Yeah, and Ian, I have had one source tell me that they were either near, or they knew, or they were working in what was a deep presentation for Trump during his first round in the presidency, and that it was UFOs, some files labeled, of course, UAP, the new unidentified aerial phenomena, but the historic unidentified flying object will be there forever. And the bottom line, without details and proof, but it was quite a discussion I had, and they said, Trump knows now a lot. He's been briefed deeply. So will he drop the mask of not knowing when he does know? That's what's in front of us. And 2026 might be finally the year.
We're running the poll at the moment, Linda. It's at the moment it's up and down 50-50. At the moment it's just slightly in the nose at 53% for 2026. But yeah, it's we'll carry on that poll at the moment. Can we just go to another question quickly from Diana Dawn, who says, a question for Linda. Are abductees put in a hypnotic trance before being pulled up into a craft, and does it feel like a huge, powerful force, like a massive magnet, pulling them out their door and up?
Yes to each part of your question, meaning everything that you have just described. I have had, there have been people who have had the beam come over them out in a cow pasture, and they have been terrified by the sudden cone of light coming down. But whatever, in that one particular case I'm thinking of, what happened was so dramatic. So there was the beam, and then it was followed by, there was a grove of trees where this particular rancher had like a trailer house that was set up during the summer, and he had a man in there, and his ranch house was another point direction, and then there were these trees, and the ranch hand that's out in this trailer right at the scene, he was getting ready, lights out, to go to bed, and he hears the breaking of limbs. It was the sound of the breaking of the limbs. And he said, the first thing he did is he looked out the window and he saw a red beam coming down to the trees. He said, it scared the out of me. And right or wrong, he did not go out. What else was projecting the red beam at exactly the same time that big branches were being broken off of the trees? Well, that is one of those scenes that I've never forgotten, because like the ranch hand, I would want to know so badly, I would probably run out of the trailer. But I also completely understand that reaction of, oh my God, what is it? And not ever getting out of the trailer, if you see what I mean philosophically. And right now, in all directions everywhere, I would say that probably, would you, that out of 8 billion people, maybe a few thousand might not be intimidated enough to not go out of the trailer, and then they would be exposing themselves directly to the light beams, the craft, the fall. And it turned out that in the morning in the sun, he learned why the branches were breaking, because they were cattle and they were mutilated and they were on the ground. So this was a case that when he told what he finally found the next morning, they had to have been being dropped from this object that he saw as a beam of light. That doesn't mean that every beam has something to do with killing animals. It doesn't. It means that the technology of advanced extraterrestrials may look similar case to case, but doing completely different things that we don't understand. And the ranch hand said to me, I don't know what I would have done if I realized that there were cows dropping through those trees, breaking those limbs, and that red beam that I saw that scared me is what brought the cows and dropped them through. So there in just one incident, just look at all the different facets there are and questions. Go ahead, you guys.
Okay, yeah, I just want to acknowledge our super chats this evening. Thank you very much, everyone, for this. And by the way, Linda, we're joined from all over the world tonight again. Ireland, Ghana, and Finland get a mention tonight.
Oh, good.
Thank you as well to Caught on Fire, Yin Yang Glow, Dal Sabos Dag Nova, and the R. Elizabeth. And the R. Elizabeth has a question. Why are they letting some have awareness? These are ETs when people are being abducted. Why are they letting some have awareness when they know they are frightening them? I have never seen them. They are behind me, and the thoughts are transferred. I have zero memories of being harmed.
If I understand, you're saying, why don't the ETs give frequencies that you will either be safe or you will be harmed, or something that is communicated to the humans that they are taking out of beds, out of basements, or wherever they're being transported? Humans are usually very confused at the beginning of any consciousness of an abduction, is what I'm saying. They don't understand what's going on.
That's right. The question is really why. Some people, some abductees report that they have awareness and that they're aware, and they are then very, very frightened by the experience.
Oh, yes.
And the ETs are often saying,
yes.
Calm down, etc., or be calm, we're not going to hurt you. In her own experience, the R. Elizabeth says, they're always behind me, and thoughts are transferred. She has no memories of being harmed, but obviously some people find this a very frightening aspect of the
and to be fair, I've been trying to get to the bottom of this since September of 1979. And when you think all of the places and everywhere I have been in 28 countries and climbing in the Andes and going to the Yucatan frustrated about what is this link. Are they Anunnaki coming back historically? What is it? But the one huge thing right now is, as much as I've been exposed to, there's no question that there are extraterrestrial biological entities and artificial, you should say AI as well. They're biological and other things are AI, that are not from Earth, were not created on Earth, they're in other solar systems, other galaxies, and that is the truth. But swing back that what happens to people like in their house and they are going to bed and the light goes out and it's either a sphere, orb, or a shadow, or something is there. Well, you don't have to be trying to understand ETs to look at what is human reaction in a situation like that. If another human was projecting a hologram into a bedroom just to be sparky, the human, we have strong reactions to things that scare us. And that may be part of the problem with the whole introduction of the truth. I don't know. I've talked with people who have been terrified, and others, because they get the frequency, this like a sheath that comes over, and they feel not agitation, they feel like their skin is coming apart in a million pieces, but not injury. It's something interacting, like it feels to some people like at the molecular level, perhaps. Well, maybe that's brand new technology, and that the ETs are doing it for a reason, and that it may be more humane, quote unquote, to use something that is physical, but it's not a silhouette coming at you that would scare people. That maybe they're trying to come up with ways that they can introduce themselves independently, beyond governments, beyond all of that, just interact for a reason. And then there are huge arguments on the other side of the ledger about what is the true intent of any and all ETs on this planet of 8 billion, because the ETs are not introducing themselves to humans. And that raises a question. Okay, the bell went.
And I think it's important to note as well that in many cases, the ETs seem to control the situation. Have we got time for another question, or are we?
Well,
how are we doing?
Right now, Brad, can you read that? This is Conscious Life Expo, right?
Got an announcement.
This thing I had that swelled up my eye. Yeah.
Oh, I can't read it.
Yeah.
You can't hear me.
Yeah, let's talk about Conscious Life Expo.
I had something bite my lid earlier today, and it's hard for me to see clearly what we're looking at. But my dear, dear friend and colleague, Serena Taylor, in about 4 months, it will be the Always Fun, because of her and people that she works with at the Conscious Life Expo. And she's been doing her wonderful work there for year after year. It's based at the LAX Hilton in Los Angeles. And I asked her, what do you want? Because we all like it and we like to go. And what can we share with our viewers? And she wrote me this lovely email. Tell everybody, join me at the Conscious Life Expo at the LAX Hilton in Los Angeles, February 20th to 23rd, 2026, in about 4 months. And I, speaking for myself as a speaker who will be there, and always liking the fun and the cheers and energy and dear Serena, and Ian will be there, a lot of people. I will be giving a presentation on Saturday and a post-conference intensive on Monday. And I will also be on 3 panels throughout the conference, in addition to the 2 different lectures. And they do a special disclosure luncheon on Sunday. The food is good, the talk is fun, you learn a lot. And if you would like to purchase tickets, which I would urge a lot of you, and come up to me and take my hand and say, hey, we're in the audience, and we've been there on so many of your Wednesday nights. Hey, keep going with another one. Transition if you want. But yeah, once a month, Linda, we will hang in there. And I personally am looking forward to this Conscious Life Expo because on January 20th, I will be celebrating my 84th cycle around the sun. It doesn't seem possible. I can't imagine being in any other place in the whole universe than trying to understand what is happening on Earth and the magnificence of being able to go to zoos where animals are protected and that we can even hug some. Expanding, as the Greeks said, the agape hug from a fellow being of Homo sapien to a fellow being that is a cat, a llama, a beautiful peacock. That somehow, I think a bigger threat to Earth than anything else is us losing our agape soul to money and power. Think every single time that you've ever seen a new little kitten. There's something about kittens. And you look into their face and you look into their eyes and you don't want to hurt them, but you just want to pick them up and hug them because they are a fellow creature on Earth in a universe that has mysterious life in all directions for reasons that we don't understand on the Earth. And that right now, as we come to the end of 2025, with all kinds of allegations and openings of things that you would say were human abuse, maybe if all of us had a place that we could sort of find and make it grow, that felt compassion, had pressure of the agape hug, maybe there would be less war, and maybe the tall whites in the Nordics might give us a friendly handshake. I've always wanted to be alive for that handshake from an extraterrestrial that was not here to take us, take anything, not take over Earth, but just coming, as the Greeks said, a fellow being, but from the universe, here to teach us about them and we about us. Pray that something positive and deep and profound like that will happen before January of 2026, so that we enter a new phase of what being alive and conscious is. I truly, truly, truly feel love in what I think is my soul, and I know a lot of you do too. There's pressure, and if we use that pressure to help us be better with other humans and with other animals, maybe somebody will end up cheering that they've been working for a long time on Earth, but by God, those humans, they are beginning to hug each other as fellow beings. See you, I'm not sure, probably in the last half of December.
Turn on closed captions for YouTube videos by clicking the white CC button on the lower right. The default language for Linda's videos is English. If you would like to see the captions in another language, click on the white Settings button next to the CC button. Select Subtitles CC, and then select Auto Translate. Select a language, and the captions will now appear in that language.
Sort of gone through, and they will hold their heads. I never had a cat do that before. And they'll pull against the comb, helping me get out snarls. And I think it's the best they've ever been.